Okay, I will see you in an hour ish. interesting thing just occurred that you would not be aware of. We stood back from the medium and waited till the very last second to take over control, to show to the medium that he needs to make sure that there is full surrender. It is only when that first few words of speech are spoken that the true connection happens. So, of course, this requires a certain amount of trust and also diligence. To keep the techniques pure and true, and to trust everything will be as it is supposed to be. So in a moment we will begin with our healing list, and then I will withdraw and allow another to talk and to bring you two stories which will answer questions before you ask the question. At the end of those two stories, you may ask further questions. And this is our last week of questions. We will go on to a topic for a few weeks next week. So if there's anything you would like to know, now is, of course, the time. So let us begin with the healing list. And as I have said each time, each name will be held within the heart of the Creator. So what are the names, Brandon?
Okay, the names are for today: Sonia, Paya, Teresa Neal, Barbara Rains, Laurie P, Roz, Melada and Tim, Betty and David Essex, Chris and Howard Wielden, Vivian and Anna Sellers, Charlotte Burge, Gail Meller, Jane, John Mans, Nazrin and family, Kate and Jim, Kevin and Vicky, Jason, Kelsey, Sandra and Mark, Rosa, Alan, the people of the world who are in conflict instead of in peace, Erica, Eva Keegan, Sheila E, Barbara C, Joshua C, Wendy C, Loretta, Michelle and Francis Caputo, Jack and Susan Andrews, Angelina, George, Mary Ellen, Cassandra, Alexandra, Irene, Stella, Sophie, Nini, and best wishes to Lena and her family regarding today's hurricane. Thank you.
Many going through challenging times. So I will withdraw and allow the other to come through. But I will return at the end. All right, you got me again. I'm here for your questions. But I've got to tell you a couple of stories first, and they're important. They're important because they're a nice way of getting some truths be told, aren't they? People tend to remember stories a lot easier. They can relate to them. As long as the meaning's clear, as long as people understand, but stories are often in multi-layers, aren't they? You think you got it, and then you think about it, and it means something deeper than what you think. That's the way normally stories go, ain't they? Anyway, look, let's get on with it, get going. Look, the first story is really about a rabbi. And here, now there is a day of atonement that is to be followed. It's a day of fasting. Hopefully it can include a little bit of drinking, but never normally. It's a day of fasting. So for 24 hours, no food. All right. And at the end of it, there is a sermon by a local rabbi, and he is standing talking to his congregation. And as he's coming nearer to the end, and the end of the whole day where food can be served, he is suddenly aware that if he just carried on talking for another 2 minutes, then the Messiah would appear. But it would also mean that the man in the front who's had a particular tough day, he would die. So he had the choice to carry on and the Messiah would appear, or end. And if he didn't end, the man would die. So the rabbi immediately finished the speech so that the man could carry on living. Now, you're not going to be faced by such dramatic decisions, are you? You know, the Messiah or the passing of a gentleman. You ain't going to be faced with anything quite as dramatic as that. But don't let your natural common sense get in the way of all this potential spirituality, these spiritual gifts that you strive for. Be sensible. Live your life by what is right, by love for another person. That is what is right. You can strive and sacrifice others and many people for a gift that may never come. And you miss your spiritual path in doing that. The gift that needs to be given is instantaneous, not tomorrow. Do what is right to the people with you and understand. So when confronted with a decision, always pick love. Always pick love. It sounds like quite a small lesson, doesn't it? Sounds like quite a small thing to say to somebody, that don't pick the life, pick the love. Don't pick the potential, pick the love. Of course, it's very confusing. It ain't always easy to pick which is right and which is what you should do. And the difference between the two does not, what is right, come with love. Is that not love as well? Always pick love and do the right thing and leave the potential behind. You see, okay, this isn't the second story, but I'll tell you anyway, that there was a man once, and he was cleaning the windows, and he's there cleaning the windows. He's been on his spiritual path for around 20 years, and he's cleaning the windows, and as he's cleaning the window turned into like a big mat of jewels, all shiny, bright and wonderful, and he loved it, and it was Such a beautiful experience to have. This is a true story. And when he finished cleaning the windows, everything went back to normal. And he said to his friend, he said, I saw the window changed into a big carpet of jewels. He said, I now know I'm going to have to wait weeks, months, maybe even years for it to happen again. Don't know when it's going to happen again. And it was only a matter of a couple of months later, he gave up his spiritual path. He gave it up because he thought, you know what, it's going to be so long before I get it again. I'm going to give it away now. I'm going to close it all up. I've achieved something wonderful. So was it right that he got this vision or not? You see it. It happened. You got to let it go and just carry on. Now, a job ain't done until the final paintbrush is washed, dried, put away in its correct position. People think the job's done when you finish painting that little bit of a wall or a corner or a pipe. But the job don't finish until everything's cleaned, folded, put away in its right place. That's when a job ends, and that's why people think, well, I'll leave that, clear that away later. And doesn't it, when you leave a paintbrush on the side, doesn't it kind of sit in your mind a little bit? Job's done when a job's done. Only at the very end of the job. Anyway, look, let's get on to story number 2. There was a man who got, let's say a rabbi again. A man asked the rabbi and said, why is it sometimes God is really close to me and other times he feels like he's a mile away, up in the distance somewhere? Sometimes he's near, sometimes he's far. What's going on there? Can you answer me that then? Come on, hurry up. Anyway, so the rabbi sat there and thought, well, he said, do you know when a child is starting to walk? The man said, yeah, I'll get it. He said, well, there's generally one of the parents is behind so that if he falls, he can pick him up or catch him. He said, yeah, I understand. He said, and there's another one, the other parent's in front of him and he's holding out his hands. He's saying, come to me, little one. And the little toddler begins to walk and eventually makes it, yeah? And at other times, as the baby gets stronger, the one in the front encourages the child forward and then steps back a step, and then back another step to encourage the child to walk further and to gain more strength. That's what happens in your life. I bet a couple of you are even doing it around now or soon too. You see, the one in the back, the parent in the back is there to stop in case he falls. And the one in the front is there to encourage strength, encourage determination, encourage the child to do better, to go further, to able to walk correctly. Otherwise, the child would only learn to walk 2 steps. Sometimes he's got to learn to work 4 or 8 or 10. You see, it's the same for you. Sometimes you feel God really close, or spirit, if you want, really close to you. And other times it just feels like it's way, way, way away. And you think you've got the link in the morning, then in the afternoon you can't find it. It's kind of like what we did to the medium at the beginning. He had to keep trusting, he had to keep building his ability, the energy, the connection. It's exactly the same example. So when you are practicing your gift, whichever gift it is, sometimes we step away, not to be not with you. So you get your techniques right. You rely on what is right, what is true. Anyway, the man who asked the rabbi, he understood in the end. We got it. It's a nice story, nice clear story, I think. A clear way of putting it. So your spiritual path, your spiritual progress, the way that you'll get from A to B does mean at times we have to stand back a little bit and say, come on over here then. Keep going, mate, keep going. Another step, you'll do it. Stick to your guns. You see, it's the adversity in the early days which learns the process, isn't it? The adversity, the dedication, the commitment. If you did everything and it worked perfect first day, I guarantee you'd be finished by the 4th or 5th day. You'd be thinking, oh, I've learned that, it was easy. You see, we need to give you little bits of gifts along the way to encourage you to keep going, but at the same time, we can't give you too much because it'll end up giving it away like the man in the window. I've done that now. Let's go on to something else. So we've got to put down a few breadcrumbs, if you know what I mean, and say, there you go, follow that. You can do it. So you tell me, is that really an act of love or is that an act of control and desire from our point of view? From our point of view, it's an act of love, isn't it? If you're feeling a bit grumpy, you might think it's an act of just being awkward and nasty. So we've got to sow a few things in front of you to encourage you. But you have to pick each one of them seeds up, look at it, put it down, carry on. See, sometimes the seed has to be very big, a very dramatic image or sensation, vision maybe, that really shocks somebody into movement. Shocks them enough to, let us say, light that spark, to encourage them. You see, somebody here has gotten a port, has appeared. Now, the idea of that ain't so that that's the end of it. It's keep going. That's a little bit. Keep going. See it as an act of love, as, let's say, a reward for the steps you've taken and a thank you for the steps that you're about to take. If you hold on to that and think you want 2 ports and each 3 ports, or change it from let's say something small to something bigger, well, your ego is getting involved in the process. You need to take gradual, easy steps. Now, I suppose I've answered a few people's questions already in a little bit, and I suppose I think I've answered questions that perhaps you didn't even know you had in your mind. And then somewhere in between for the rest of you, I guess. The idea of this two stories is to tell you that keep going with your work. see the gift as a thank you and keep going. More to come. Just because nothing's there doesn't mean we're not there. We've got your front and back, but you're the one that has to walk it. How many times do you reckon people think to themselves, I'm going to give this up? How many times? Do you reckon it's only one or two? I doubt it. No, it's a tenacity that keeps you going. Anyway, look, I'll carry on talking like this for a while. Let's get to see if anybody's got any questions, maybe see if anybody wants to ask anything and see how we get on with them. Otherwise, we'll carry on going. Is there any questions there to be asked?
Just for the record, I would always choose you, Charlie, over the Messiah.
I am the Messiah, and I'm the Messiah of Rum. Well, maybe not. Anyway, look, it's nice. Thank you very much. Thank you for the compliment.
No worries, Charlie. We have a question from Jane. Jane, would you like to ask your question?
Hi, Charlie.
Hello.
Charlie, just trying to keep this general. When we're living in, let's call it the fifth dimension, where there's no conflict, judgment, force, anger, fear, anything like that, this is what we're endeavoring to do, to rise above petty things, if you like. And yet we're still in the physical body and living in a third dimensional world that's physical, and we're required to deal with force, judgment, fear, unjust things that seem to be overpowering. And you know in your heart they're wrong, or not required for you yourself. That's not making calls for other people. They're not required for you. Yet they stand in the way of you going forward with what you know in your heart is what you're supposed to do. Do you submit to this, or do you let it sweep you along, or do you resist it? I feel the answer is, it should still be in your heart, but yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
So you've come to the realization that there is, let's say, peace, love and harmony, and then you're confronted with judgment and criticism, and you're not sure which way you should live.
Well, overpowering forces that seem to want to control the way that you live.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right then. So there's two things to understand here. Is first of all, you are not of the world, you are in the world, which is in essence what you're saying. When you come to comprehend your spiritual self, the self of all your loveliness, then you should honor that always, hold that always. And when you are confronted with Mr. Grumpy and he tells you, you should turn right, and when you think it, you know that you have to go left in your spiritual path, the first thing you should do is honor him and listen to him and listen to what he has to say. Now, your spiritual path is not dependent on what you do. Your spiritual path is dependent on how you do whatever it is that you have to do. So, again, let me give you an example. And I'm going to use a particularly truthful story, although there will be no proof of it being truthful. What karma do you think a centurion would have when he had to send all the Christians to be killed in the Colosseum? Now, your first thoughts are he would have bad karma, because he was instrumental, at least in part, in organising a process. He could have given in, he could have surrendered and thus took his own life, or be killed by his people in charge. However, you would never know, but this centurion was also a Christian. And everyone that went past, he sent them a blessing. And as he sent them a blessing, the work, he actually gained good karma. He knew what he was doing was wrong. He knew that what he was doing was not in line with the spiritual path, yet he did it. And as much as he possibly could, he added a little bit of peace and a little bit of love to all those which had to go and face what they had to face. You see, sometimes you're forced to do something which you think is not right. And you think from your perspective, it's not right to do that. How do you know? You never know. You never can know whether right is the correct path or left. How do you know if that person's not your messenger to say, no, your path's not left, it's the other way? And how do you know then it's not your judgment that's wrong on your spiritual path? You see, your path, as I said, ain't about what you do, it's how you do it. How much love do you bring into the world? How much peace, how much joy? The only true thing you have control over is how much emotions travel, let's say, from the audience to the screen. How much love do you allow into your life? That's the spiritual path. You see, it's often thought that what I have to do is go rescue everybody, go and save everybody, go and do something wonderful, write this enormous book that would change the course of the world. And that may be all well and good. But your spiritual path may be some simple as offering a cold drink to somebody that is hot, by giving a coin to somebody that needed it, by helping that little old lady across the street. You see, how many of little old ladies can you help cross a street, or give a coin to somebody in need, or even support to somebody that is feeling down? How many of them could you do a day?
Lots.
Well, I tell you, there's lots, isn't there? Exactly. How many save the worlds can you do in a day? Well, none really. And if you did help that little old lady across the street, or gave a coin to somebody in need, well, to them you have saved their world, maybe. So the person who comes in front of you and tries to put you off, try to disturb you, try to say what you are doing is wrong, or something like that, you can't tell whether they are for you or against you. You can have your judgment, of course. How much love do you bring to that person at that time? Or do you just want to punch him on the nose and say, you're being a fool? Of course, there's probably times where you probably consider both. But the truth is how much love do you bring in the world? And maybe your act of loving that controversial person is your spiritual path. So, of course, there's times where you think you've got to do something grand, got to make a stand, do a step. So let me tell you a story. It's a story day today. So one day, a man, he says to his God, and he says, will you come and save me? And his God said, of course I will. And then all of a sudden there was a huge storm and lots of rain. And the man was in his house and the water gets higher and higher. And eventually he has to sit on the roof and the water is still rising. And as the water gets higher, then a policeman appears and says, come with me, we'll save you. And he says, no, my God will save me. And the policeman goes along his way. And then a boat comes past and says, jump on here, we'll rescue you. He says, no, my God will save me. And let's say a helicopter or something appears and says, come on then. And he says, no, I am waiting for my God. But the water kept on rising and eventually the man drowned. And he gets to heaven and he says, hey, big fella, what happened to you? I thought you were coming. And he says, I did come. I sent you the policeman, the boat and the helicopter. See, if you've been asking for a sign, how do you know you ain't got it? Of course, you don't know, do you? You're never really going to know whether the man in front of you is for you or against you, or for your path or against your path. It's impossible to tell. May have a little bit of a feeling, but it's impossible to tell. All you can do is deal with your emotion on the time. And maybe that person is right. Maybe you are wrong. So you should listen. Listen to what they say. And listen with your heart open. And a little bit of love, sometimes a lot of love, will go from you to them. And maybe in doing that, a little bit of love will go from them to you. And then whichever way you pick, left or right, your job is done. It doesn't matter. You see, people often think that their paths are big and great. But their spiritual path is very small, just like the rabbi and the old man who was going to die on the front seat. He didn't think, well, the Messiah's more important, the Messiah's going to save thousands, this one life is worth it. Did he? He didn't say that. You know, that's looking to the future, and that's saying my spiritual path is in the distance. That's the way I've got to go. Forget everybody else and everything else. He saved that man's life. Can you tell me that is not a spiritual path? Of course it is. Of course, this is a hypothetical story. It's not a truthful one, but just bring love into the world. That's it. If you did that all your life, just brought love into the world, or peace, well, what have you done wrong? Do you see what I mean, Jane?
Yeah, I do. It's the small things, I guess, but
spiritual paths ain't big things, they're small things. Spiritual paths are not in the distance, they're right now, right here, right now. A simple act of your breathing. What must go on for you to breathe is enormous. How you treat the person next to you at that time is the path. It's not in the way of the path. Always bring peace, love, and joy into the world first. And do you know what happens? So let's go to this man. You're walking along your path. You want to go left. Grumpy man says you should go right. Little bit of love between the two of you. Whichever way you go, doesn't matter. The world has a little bit of love. And maybe, just maybe, you will have changed Mr. Grumpy into Mr. Peaceful. And let's say you ignored him and you'd walked your way. Well, maybe you've missed it. You know, rather like the man on the house waiting for his God. His God came. He didn't recognize him. He's waiting for an angel or something. But the God for him was the policeman, the boatman, the helicopter man. God doesn't come in forms that you expect, but he always comes in the emotions that you give. Remember, when two or more are gathered in my name, I will be there. It is not for the connection of two, it's the connection of love between the two. And it is love which bonds two to make them one. It is love that changes duality into unity. It is love that brings the world together, isn't it? So how can love not be on the spiritual path? Now you could debate what is love, what is the qualities of love, how does it express itself? That's another topic. What's in front of you is your spiritual path, not in the way of the path.
Thank you. And the rest that you can't control, let spirit do the work. Okay?
Let spirit do the work. The rest you cannot control. You know, all you can do is bring the correct emotion into the world. And you do that by making sure everything is open and clear. Have you noticed some people, when they're feeling down or hurt or in pain for whatever reason, and I'm not minimizing that, and they never feel genuine. Everybody who is suffering from that most deepest of pain, which brings them right down, they want to escape because they don't feel genuine. And they want to escape to what is genuine. The genuine, of course, is the richness of life. You know, you can find your spiritual path just painting a wall. You know, if you're really attentive, you can find your life like that man cleaning a window, hammering a nail into a piece of wood. You can find your path by just watching the way your fingers move. It's kind of as simple as that. And yet mankind makes it sound like I've got to walk up to the top of the mountain. See, the contradiction within Buddhism that Buddha realized is that Buddha didn't need a temple. There's no need for a temple. But the beauty of a temple is it gives support to everybody that walks in it. Support that keep going, they all say to each other, you can do it. But the way is not in the temple. The way is in the heart. Anyway, look, once you get me started, you know what I'm like. 1,000 words for just said a couple. Let's move on. Thank you, Jane. I hope you enjoyed the
Charlie.
rather short answer.
Thanks, Charlie.
Is there another one?
Man was waiting for you to save him, Charlie. That's why.
Thank you.
So I have a submitted question here from Angelina.
Hmm.
She wants some clarification. My understanding is the nature of the expansiveness of our soul is fast, which gives us during our sleep states the possibility to not only encounter beings from other universes and dimensions that we have a connection to, but also to be actively of service to souls, for example, whose psychic is disturbed after they have passed.
All right. Well, I think what she's saying is it faster when you're asleep, as in, is your vibration higher? I think she's asking that. Would you agree with that as far as you know?
Yeah, let's go with that.
All right. You see, the enlightened man is enlightened during sleep and after sleep. The enlightened man is enlightened 24 hours a day, no matter what sleep occurs. The unenlightened man thinks, I am only enlightened, I can only be possibly enlightened during my waking state. Now, when you are enlightened and understanding the very nature of spirit, then everything is there for you. So the more unified you become, the more understanding of the world you are given, and therefore everything is available. So many times ago, it was mentioned to a certain person about meditation. And not I, but one of the others said, if you meditate long enough and do the practice, I'll be there waiting for you. That is a true phrase. Let me explain it another way. Once you find your unity, it won't be just I waiting for you, it will be everything and everybody. You see, your consciousness is active 24 hours a day. And you're thinking, well, I'm not conscious during my sleep. That's not true. You are conscious during your sleep. You just do not remember from the minute you close your eyes to the minute you open them again. So again, to use this analogy, that you put your head in the water and watch life. When you are asleep, you lift your head slightly out of the water and maybe you see more of life. When you're enlightened, your whole head is out of the water and you pick to put it in and out as you see fit. Hence, you can have some control over your death. So, yes, the expansive soul is really the spiritual self. The expansive, as in terms of expanded, is the realization my head is out of the water and I am the consciousness that puts my head into the water. Soul is the belief of individual aspect of spirit. So really the expansive soul, the soul expands to such a level that it is then unified or spirit. So it is of no surprise that when an individual soul has such a level of clarity, in essence, it stops being a soul and becomes a spirit. And then everything is seen. So you will see, let's say, angels and extraterrestrials. You may see all your past lives. You may see all your future lives if you wish. You may know things that you should not know. You know things about the person next to you because you are the person next to you. So the truthful answer is The soul expands until it becomes spirit, or it goes from individual to universal. So the clarity becomes clear and everything is seen in a very different way. And you see me, or you see others, because it's all an aspect of the same. So in essence, when you look at this from a physical point of view, you see Brandon and Charlie, for example. But when you see it from a spirit point of view, you do not see the individual. So the viewpoint is different, that is all. Your natural viewpoint is broad, and you see everything. But you're coming into the world to see just a very, very narrow point of it. So really, you're dusting off all the blinkers, all the bits of card which keeps you focused on a very small bit. And that is why, as you waken up, you know things about other people. It's natural for your psychic and mediumship ability to open when you are opening yourself. I hope you can see the logic in that. And if you stay at that level, for whatever reason, it's natural. You'll find it limited. It'll be natural to open a bit more and open a bit more. And that is why mediumship is on the path, but not the path. There's more expansion to be done, to see more of life. Start with the broad and realize you've narrowed it down to the narrow. Put it another way, start with the spirit and realize you've narrowed your viewpoint down to the human. The act of enlightenment is breaking those barriers down to realize you are the broad, the universal, the spirit. So anybody that has a spiritual path, begins a spiritual path, it will be natural for them just to know more than they know, if you know what I mean. And then the visions and everything else becomes clear. It is natural. It is just dusting off the eyes, removing those blinkers. So if you wore blinkers all day, all you would see is, let us say, 1 meter in front of you. But if you widen them a little bit, you might see, let's say, a square 2 meters by 2 meters, and then widens a bit further, you might see, let us say, a whole street. You think, wow, look at that. And you become clearer, you see the world and the universe and everything in it. Remember the story, it's not what you see, it's where you see it from that's important. This is a description of your spiritual path. So anybody that is helping or teaching or guiding another person, in essence, you are clearing away the dust that's in the way of their eyesight. And that's why the answer is there's more to see. That's why you get the breadcrumbs. Look, open up a little bit more, there's more. And what happens is people then decide to give up, and then their focus becomes narrowed down to, let's say, that 1 square meter in front of them. And having seen the whole street, even for a little while, that 1 square meter will never be enough. The big is not satisfied with the small. So eventually those who have given up and gone back to the 1 meter know at some day they will have to do it again. Open up a little bit more. So once the candle is lit, the realization happens that some of the eyesight has changed. Then it has to open up at some stage. But it's the same for your path. Like you've all beginned, beginned is not the right word. What's the word? Begun. Begins is a Charlieism. You've all beginned your path. Well, you ain't got no choice anymore. Yeah, you can say, look, I'm just going to lose myself in my room, read my book, forget all this spiritual la stuff. And we would say, okay, little does he know. Sinister laugh. Anyway, you know what I mean. And we know better. We know that you ain't got no choice. You can resist it as long as you like. But all you're resisting is your true self, and that don't make any sense, does it? I'm resisting my true self. I'm resisting happiness. I like this drama stuff. Remember the story, like the tramp who sits on a box of gold and is too scared to open it? You see, all these things, all these stories, all these little bits of courses and stuff are waking you up to your truth. And you can say to some people, let's do a course on red, and somebody else will do a course on yellow and blue or whatever. All of it is waking somebody up. All of it is saying, come back to the light, come back to the love, come back to the truth of spirit, come back to who you are. So, absolutely correct. A soul, when it expands at such a level, it gets, let's say, broader eyesight. But it could close itself down whenever it wanted, only to open itself back up. Does that make sense, Brandon? Have I said it in a right way? Do you think it's clear for her?
Yeah, I think that was fantastic.
All right. Well, done my job, I guess, and I done it right. Is there time for a quick question, or have we got to go?
I think we're just about out of time, Charlie.
Are we? All right.
Yeah.
It's enjoyable, isn't it? I do enjoy these chats.
Yes, we
Do
thank you for
you know
coming
what?
again.
When I talk and say to you, you got to do this, you got to do that, think about this, think about that, whatever, it reaffirms the progress within me. Now you're thinking, what are you talking about, man? You're already there. Well, this path never ends. It's like saying, how much love do you want in your life? And some people say, I'll have a drop today, please. Just one drop, feeling a bit stingy. And somebody else would then say, no, I'll have two. Well, it becomes like a drug, if you know what I mean. You just never want to stop. The light becomes the light. Then you can't resist it. Anyway, look, I could carry on, but I'm out of here. All right, everybody, see you again. Ta-ra. Have a lovely day. Always walk on the sunny side of the street.
Don't forget to practice for your next song like next time.
All right. Ta-ra. The truth is, you are always on your spiritual path. The feeling, though, is you are often not. And this is because the human eye looks towards the future and misses the present moment. If you wish to try something that will affirm your path or not, is look how much you bring into your world. Are you acting from which self, your physical or higher self? The simple act of observation will keep you in the present moment. And that is where your truth lies. Not tomorrow, not today, right here, right now. Until next week. Let peace be within your heart. God bless you all.
Thank you, Ignatius.
She doesn't.